Hello and welcome to our today's webcast session, What Transformation Leaders Do Differently. We would like to excuse our live webcast for the bad audio quality and would like to make it up to you with this replay. So once again, our two speakers for today are Hocken and Felix Optehostert. Christian is the managing partner at the Industry 4.0 Maturity Center here in Aachen, Germany. He's responsible for the strategic direction and for the development of customer and partner relations. Furthermore, he is experienced in the transformation of manufacturing companies and performs projects in a wide range of industry together with his team. Felix, on the other hand, is a senior manager at the Industry 4.0 Maturity Center as well. He's responsible for the corporate venturing services here at the center and supports producing companies in leveraging startup corporations and innovative ventures for their digital transformation journey. Furthermore, together with his team, he brings in deep expertise in data-driven businesses, development, and digital transformation.
Thank you, Lian, for the introduction, and hello and welcome to our replay of the webcast, What Transformation Leaders Do Differently. We will discuss Industry 4.0 best practices, experiences, and the progress of the industries. And here with me is Christian. So hi, Christian. Hello.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you that you're here. And you will share some experiences and insights from your side today. So the webcast title is What do transformation leaders do differently? And the first question from my side would be, what transformation do we talk about?
Well, obviously we are talking about the digital transformation of manufacturing companies, which, however, comes in various aspects. So the topic is not new. We are talking about Industry 4.0 and digitalization since 2011. But we see that a lot of companies finally have embarked the journey towards digital transformation. And these transformations come in various changes. So we have the classical transformation, which is more dealing with internal optimization, changing business processes. We see more and more companies offering smart services, data-driven services to their customers. And we see already few manufacturers who completely shift their business models, offering new opportunities for the entire sector they are working in.
So Industry 4.0 is high up on the agenda of many businesses. There are opportunities, there are risks, of course. So considering that from your perspective, what are the main aspects companies could expect from Industry 4.0?
Well, what we can see is that this topic is becoming much more mature in the recent years. Yeah, and we see that a lot of CXOs are also changing their view on Industry 4.0. There's a recent study which was published by Deloitte beginning of this year, providing data of 2019. So Deloitte made a survey asking CXOs how far they are in realizing their Industry 4.0 goals, what their top priorities are, and whether they have a strategy in place. So this survey goes from, well, for a particular aspect, we do not have a formal strategy at this time, up to we have a very comprehensive, holistic strategy in place, and this is broken down into several aspects. And I'd like to guide you through a few of these aspects. First of all, they are quite the typical aspects you would expect. Here's the first one, protecting our organization from disruption. Here, of course, this is what everybody is doing. Everybody has the Uber story and other disruptor story in mind. So this is really high up on the agenda. We see this that 73% of the companies actually have this in place. Of course, differentiating products and services is quite high. Making investments finally. So it took us long enough. Now this study is as of 2019, and I'm sure if we haven't stepped into the coronavirus, we would have seen much more investment into Industry 4.0 technology. And one aspect that is really crucial for scaling the transformation, finally CXOs are thinking about connecting and integrating different Industry 4.0 technologies, so platforms are just around the corner. On the other hand, that was quite a technical view CXOs have on Industry 4.0. There's a non-technical view, and this is quite an interesting view from my point of view. So, first of all, companies are seeing new labor models. 79% have a strategy for this in place. And it shows, I mean, and Corona even enforces this. We're talking about a change of our working culture. Of course, we have the war for talent, and training the workforce is a topic that is becoming important, together with developing new skills, something that we will see throughout today's webcast, I'd assume.
Okay, so from your perspective, how do you feel companies are doing right now on their Industry 4.0 journey? Are you satisfied with the progress? And maybe you could share also some things that we learned from industrial leaders in it.
What I see is that first and foremost, I'm really happy that more and more companies are embarking this journey. And this is also what the data tells us, what we will see later on. There's hardly any company that you will find which hasn't heard about Industry 4.0 or a company that is not doing something in this field. However, we see that the leaders are, so to say, distinguished from the laggards. The gap is getting wider, much wider. So people or companies who started early on with their transformation, they are now the ones who are really benefiting from this. And I mean, I don't want to come back to Corona this often during this webcast, but especially the Corona time shows now that companies who have embarked the journey very early are taking advantages of this, being in a position that they can manage this virus much better than other companies can do. So to close your question, I'm quite satisfied with the things I see. On the other hand, there are some things we need to do.
So from my perspective, in the last years, Industry 4.0 was always something for, I would say, technology lovers. It was about implementing and validating and trying out new technologies. It was not considered that technology could be cost effective. At that point, it was the first wave of really bringing the pilots into the factories. So maybe can you share some insights on how this has changed? Maybe there are already some quantifiable advantages or benefits for the businesses out there?
Well, a couple of years ago, a lot of companies stepped into the new technology, and that's what we see. We see a lot of pilots in the market early on. It was more about trying out new things, checking whether the technology is mature enough to go into production, and basically get a feeling for what the technology will offer you. However, this is something that companies did a couple of years ago. So nowadays, it's really more about making use of the benefits that Industry 4.0 technologies can bring, and really make Industry 4.0 help you to grow your business. And that's something interesting we'd like to share with you, because there's often enough the question on, okay, so what does the technology bring to me? Is it helpful? What is the financial impact? And what we compiled here is a meta study from the World Economic Forum, McKinsey, Deloitte, Roland Berger. So they offered these studies. We compiled them and we checked the most prominent KPIs. Let's start with the earnings before interest and tax, EBIT. So studies indicate that we will see an improvement between 0.3 and 7.3%. So on average, this is 2.7. So we see Industry 4.0 technologies do have an impact on the EBIT. And we can also see where this comes from. So first of all, we see a revenue in the increased sales, 5%, which is quite okay. But the big levers, of course, are increased performance and unplanned downtime here. So this really helps you to gain your revenue, along with the time to market, which can be increased heavily, for example, by connecting entire organizations with integrated data models. A topic we will certainly discuss later. Secondly, the cost is of course an aspect as well. First and foremost, we'll see savings in labor costs, especially in production, quite prominent savings in logistics costs, quality costs, engineering costs, material costs. Yeah? So to sum it up, I wouldn't say Industry 4.0 is something for technology lovers. For me, Industry 4.0 needs to be part of the day-to-day business, and we see that it's possible, and leaders actually benefit from these technologies on scale already.
So I certainly can see also measure the business impact of Industry 4.0 on especially also the industry leaders. But maybe could you explain how you measure the progress within your journey of industry?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I do that with pleasure. Well, there are a couple of things you keep in mind, or you have to keep in mind. First and foremost, so we are beyond this pilot stage. So we're talking about a large-scale transformation, and usually this large-scale transformation needs a plan. And that's something we already dealt with since 2016. We started our work with a study that we wrote together with ACATEC, the National Academy of Science and Engineering in Germany. And what we published was a study called the Industry 4.0 Maturity Index. And this study gave companies a guide at hand on how they can develop their roadmap. Yeah, three aspects are important. First, understanding your business strategy, then getting a view on your status quo. Where are you today, and what do you want to do? What do you want to achieve? And then how do you get there? This is covered in this study. And interestingly, in 2020, we published a new report, and this report comes with case studies and with the analysis of 70 studies we conducted at our clients. Some very interesting results, so you might want to download them. We will cover a few of the topics in this webcast, but if you want to get the full overview, then please download the publication on our website, and if you wish and you have enough time, then click on the QR code.
Okay, so some of our viewers, I would assume, are not as familiar with the maturity index as you are, of course. So maybe you could provide a very brief and high-level insight on this maturity index, maybe also how it is applied and how we really measure the Industry 4.0 maturity levels.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So we are following two principles there, and this is really something I want to give you at hand when you're thinking about shaping your transformation. It is important to choose a stepwise approach. Yeah? You can't just jump from A to B, and this is also reflected in the maturity levels you're talking about. So, for example, what we see here are the 6 stages we use, going from computerization, the lowest level, up to the highest level, which we call adaptability. And computerization and connectivity are usually about integrating IT and business, making sure that your ERP system, for example, supports you in the best way possible. And we'll jump into Industry 4.0, starting with the third phase, which we call visibility. At this point, we are in a position that we have real-time data available, for example, sensor data coming from our machines. And this data helps us to build first holistic data models about our company, about our organization, putting us in a position to taking informed decisions, data-based decisions. And having this real-time data available is really key for the other more advanced technologies like advanced analytics, predictive maintenance, and so on, up to the point of level 6, where we talk about adaptability, something we'll probably see in the near future when companies start to autonomously run their production systems. There's a second aspect or second principle I'd like to mention. Technology is important, but getting a transformation journey going, and this is what we learn from industry leaders every day, is takes a little more. So you really have to look on this from a 360 degree perspective, incorporating the information systems, the culture, the organizational structure, and the resources. And the key to success is that you are good in all of these fields. Yeah? So you don't need to outperform all the fields, but being good at these different fields will certainly help to get your transformation going.
Okay, let's maybe go a step back again to the maturity levels that you explained. So that's a very intuitive way to describe the road to Industry 4.0 or the journey to Industry 4.0. So what would be maybe interesting for our audience is in which stage is the industry right now, companies?
Yeah, something I'd like to share with you. So coming back to the maturity levels, when you talk about Industry 4.0 at scale, then this is something that starts at level 3. Yeah, and that's what we need to take in mind when we now look at the data. What we see across the studies we carried out is that the biggest part of the companies, 80%, are still in the connectivity phase. You know, so they are preparing themselves, preparing their systems, but they have not really yet started with Industry 4.0 on the large scale. So these are the beginners. 4% of the companies are really the leaders here, yeah, making progress in Industry 4.0, and still 16% of the companies are laggards who have not yet started to work on Industry 4.0, as you could call it.
You also already mentioned laggards, you mentioned the industry leaders. So maybe could you explain the difference between both and what do they do differently in the way the maturity level is?
Yeah, so the beginner is someone, for me, who is currently on the connectivity level. Yeah? They are making themselves available, they are preparing everything to get Industry 4.0 going, and they are really close to jumping on the visibility level. So leaders are companies who are on the visibility level and onwards, and then there are the laggards, and laggards are usually here, so they are still on the computerization level. And what we see between those groups is, that also laggards started with working on Industry 4.0. These are the pilots we talked about earlier. So there might be isolated Industry 4.0 use cases, which helps laggards to build capabilities, first capabilities. On the other hand, most of their capabilities are on a rather low level, between 1.0 and 2.0. And you see that the distribution between these 2 points is quite big. Yeah. Beginners doing a lot better. Yeah. So on average, they are between level 2 and 3, having some very promising pilots, but they have to do some homework below here. And then finally, there are the leaders, and the leaders have developed most of their capabilities. So you see them, they are pretty close here, around 3.0, with some very promising pilots going on that pushes them, some of them even up to level close to transparency. Yeah, which is great.
So maybe let's go a little bit deeper and have a more closer look on, I would say, more tangible topics and subjects. So you described the 4 fields: resources, culture, organization, and these systems. Maybe you could share some insights on trends in those fields, maybe in the field of information systems.
Yeah, sure, I'll do this. So the big trend we see today is integrating IoT platforms. That's what a lot of manufacturers do recently. We see that, for example, Azure is growing a lot. A lot of people are starting first tests with Azure, and so the 2020s will definitely be around about integrating IoT platforms into the organization at scale. There are some examples here, and I just want to share one of the concepts with you, a concept we've developed in Aachen. It's called the Internet of Production. It's more like a reference architecture, or better not call it an architecture, it's more like a concept. Yeah, but there are architectures out in the market that are pretty close to this Internet of Production. So without naming any brands, I think it makes sense to have a look at this architecture here. And one important aspect of platform is to overcome silos, because silos is something that we see around manufacturers for ages. Yeah? They have, for example, a PLM system in place that is used by the engineering department. They have data, or they are using the CAD systems in the engineering department as well. They have ERP systems or MES on the shop floor, and so on and so forth. However, one of the disadvantages is that these systems do not talk to each other. And sometimes, especially in the development process, it might make sense to access data that is not part of the PLM system, but that is part elsewhere. And of course, combine this information with data that is probably outside your organization, or data that is coming from sensors. And this is what a platform can do with you. And the magic happens here in the green layer, which is a middleware, or in this concept, it's called Middleware Plus. And what this does is it builds a link to the data which lays in these expert systems. And it builds up entire new data models connecting various systems. And that helps you to solve things that you couldn't really solve easily in the past, because cleansing the data and making sure everything fits together was not really possible. What I can do here is, of course, I can build new data models, holistic data models. I can integrate data, and I can perform analytics. And the reason I want to do this is because I want to put my people in a position to take better decisions. And this is what we see on the top layer here. Of course, this information can then provide it in an app or elsewhere, so where such a decision is needed.
Okay, so we really talk about this top layer where applications also come to the hands of the people, to drive decisions, and really building these applications and launching new initiatives and projects within the company. It's really, I would say, there are a lot of things happening right now in the industry, but from what I've experienced and heard within the industry, there's also a lot of frustration, because many of these projects are stuck in, sometimes called the pilot purgatory. They're stuck at the pilot level or stage. So maybe you could share some reasons from your perspective why these projects are still not going to scale and really bring this business value that you described before.
Yeah. I mean, that's of course what we see a lot, and you need to make sure that the transition between being in a pilot phase and doing something at scale works out. And there are a couple of things that need to come together. First of all, you have the technical experts, usually very close to the use case that are where the use case resides. Of course, when you embark on a transformation, it is important that you are clear on the budget. So transformation usually in the first step requires some investments. On the other hand, and that's probably more important, is that you have a clear view on the business value that this should bring. And what it takes here is that people talk to each other. And when you're in this transition between pilots to scale, then it is very important that you have a good organization in place that helps you to make this step. And we've made quite good experience with an organization that I'd like to show you here. It is an organization where the corporate level is part of the journey, because you need someone at the top, probably a CDO or a digitalization team, that is, or who is making sure that you're actually creating synergies. Usually, we see this especially with bigger companies, there are some specific use cases, but of course you want to choose the use cases that are easily distributed across different plants. Yeah? And for this, you need to have a corporate function in place. On the second level, and secondly, it is important that you have access to the people in the middle management, in the departments and in the business units, because this is where you can prioritize your goals. Yeah, usually different divisions have different business models, and it is important to align the goals of your transformation with these business models. Yeah? And this is also the position where you can align initiatives across the department. And we've made quite good experiences here with implementing digitalization consultants at this level, who have a direct link to the CDO team, and these consultants help the management on this level to execute the Industry 4.0 roadmap. This might be a part-time job, depending on the size of the division. It can be a full-time job. And then being close to the use case and where the magic happens, of course, is essential. So having local digitalization managers that help you to effectively roll out these solutions is absolutely necessary.
So I would say it's fair to say that Industry 4.0 is not an event that happens. It's more of a journey, a transformation journey that you undergo as a company. And during this journey on the road, there could be some obstacles, there could be some challenges on the way. So maybe could you explain from your experience in the projects you do, what are the main challenges of?
Sure. So my first point is a point we talked about a lot, actually. So prototypes, proof of concept, they create awareness, but in the end, they do not help you in the end to unfold the full operative potential. A second reason why projects fail is because projects are too ambitious and the company is not ready for them. You know? So we see this often, that manufacturer buys 100 iPads for the maintenance department, and there's literally no infrastructure that helps you to actually bring data on the iPad. Running out of time and money is of course a reason why a project might be delayed. And the last reason is that often enough new technologies are not accepted because the benefit they could bring are not clear. So in the end, the benefit is not realized.
Okay, so there are a lot of challenges to tackle, but on the journey you always also have to think about how to start. So maybe what is your advice how to start the digital transformation journey?
So testing out things, testing out new technologies is certainly a good start. If you want to really invest into Industry 4.0, then it's quite important that you in the first step get a clear view on your business strategy. So what do you want to achieve? Will you execute the same business models in 5 years from now? Or will you have additional business models or even a complete change in the business models you're executing? And this is very important before you jump into technology. And when you have this clear, when you have the strategy level clear, then it's about seeing what you have. So building up the status quo, the maturity index can help. And then a third step is making the magic happen. So building up your roadmaps.
Yeah, so you say making the magic happens, but you don't immediately become an agile learning and cyber physical company, I would say. So of course it's a hard way, but also regards to the current crisis, the current problems that companies also have to face, besides all the challenges that you mentioned. Maybe could you share some key changes you believe we may experience on the backside of the Industry 4.0 transformation? And do you maybe also have some words of encouragement for the company during these times?
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm coming back to the crisis, and this is a crisis we had 10 years ago with the financial crisis as well. And what the time shows is that this financial impact this crisis has usually is really a booster for change, for transformation. And I hope that with COVID-19, the Industry 4.0 transformation is really starting up in most of the companies. And I mean, we already see that those companies who have Industry 4.0 solutions in place are managing the crisis much better. So there's definitely a need to invest into Industry 4.0. My view, and again, a learning from the financial crisis, is that this helps us to rethink our strategies and to really work on our productivity and on our ability to be agile again. When I look at Industry 4.0, of course, sometimes it will be challenging to implement Industry 4.0, but I'm quite sure that it has tremendous benefits for companies. It has benefits for employees, for the workers relieving from tedious tasks. And last but not least, it will have an impact on the environment, which is important as well. I mean, in the beginning we saw the reduction in quality cost and material cost, and of course all these things add up to become more sustainable in the future. Yeah. And I think that's very promising. So I can encourage everyone to really make this transformation happen.
Yeah, so there are a lot of advantages also that can be quantified, as you showed us, in regards to the internal transformation. But the Industry 4.0 transformation, digitization, leads also to a change in the business model and change how the companies cooperate, interact, and really make money. So maybe you could shed briefly a light on that as well, how the business models also change during Industry 4.0.
Yeah, sure. So what we see currently is that internal optimization does not pay off as long as you, I mean, at least as long as you have a look at the stock value. Yes. So we performed a study here, and that's something I'd like to share with you. So we looked at the stock value of the four car manufacturers in Germany between 2015 and 2019. And what we see here, that when you compare them to the DAX, the Deutsche Aktienindex, then these companies are underperformers. So there are other companies in the DAX who are performing much better. Of course, there's an ongoing discussion about electric vehicles. And this is what you can see here in this data. So the stock value is much more driven by the products than by the way how you in the end execute your business. And that's why I'm saying we are just at this starting point of a transformation. We looked for a long time at internal optimization. Now it's really the time to look at the business models. And I just want to give you an outlook on the things you can see here. So maybe the comparison is not really fair, but we took two software companies from the US, Adobe and Microsoft. Both of them, they are not startups, they are around for decades. But what they did is they changed their business models. Microsoft is very successful with Office 365 and the Azure cloud. And what you see here is that these two companies are even outperforming the NASDAQ by running database business models. And this is something that we should learn in the manufacturing industry as well. So we need to regain business value by changing our business models and by changing the way we are delivering value to the clients and customers.
Thank you. I think these are some very nice last words of this webcast today. So thank you once again for your experience that you shared, and the insight that you shared, the statistics that you shared, and also the trends for the future. And I want to close this webcast, the replay of the webcast, what transformation leaders do differently. I hope you enjoyed it.
Thank you very much, Felix, for this closing statement. And I But our participants would like to say thank you to both of our speakers today, to Felix and Christian as well. And as there was no opportunity for our participants to ask any questions, we would encourage you to write us your questions via email or get in touch with us via LinkedIn. And if you want to have further information about the Maturity Index and its application, you are welcome to visit our website.